Hey, everybody. Everybody loves a winner, right? And nobody wants to be a loser, which is probably why you see people wearing the ball cap of a team that's 2,000 miles away from where they live, especially if the local team's not doing that great. And of course, it's nothing harmless with that. But did you know that social image can be dangerous for you and it can keep you from getting where you want to go? You got to know this stuff. So stick around. You're listening to The Misfit Mentor with me, Larry Marino. Welcome to The Misfit Mentor. I'm Dr. Larry Marino, and for over 30 years, I've mentored people like you. We do it by telling true stories with helpful life lessons that give real guidance for your journey. I have lived a misfit life for a long time, and I can tell you one thing. At some point, we all need a mentor. I hope you'll think of me as your misfit mentor. Well, we sure do welcome you here today to Season 2 of The Misfit Mentor. I'm Larry Marino. I'm your host. And we sure do have to thank WELT for this nice studio that we're using right here in beautiful downtown Fort Wayne, Indiana. God bless them. I just got to tell you that over the past season, what I learned was that so many of the listeners said to me that they feel like, my families don't get it. Some of my friends don't get it. And some of the things that you want to do seem so simple to you. But to family and friends, it seems weird to them. And they don't get it. They don't get us. Now, as I've said before, do not ever disrespect these people. These are our people. But listen closely. What you don't want to have happen is to get so scared of what is going on with them that you don't get to the life that you dream about. And I know what it feels like. You can feel like, man, it's hopeless for me. But you mustn't give up hope. Not ever, not ever. I lived through this. I mentored many others who didn't have the support of family or friends, and they are right now doing wonderful, creative, world-changing things in many different fields. But what we found is this. We all wanted to be the hero of our own stories, and at some point, we needed a mentor. So I hope you'll think of me as your misfit mentor. All right, let's get into the topic for today. I already mentioned a kind of a harmless way to look like a winner, wearing the ball cap and that sort of thing. There are other more serious ways, like getting letters behind our name, also known as going to school, or driving a nice car. But here's the deal. Today's topic has real application for your life. Here's why. We're going to talk about status, social identity, and social image. Now, this is important because you and I have to know this. We can all fall into the trap of needing to have this positive social image. In and of itself, it's not a big deal. But sometimes we get tempted to do things that are not really the best for us, or we might buy things that we really can't afford to sort of give the proof that we have this high social rating, social ranking. And I tell you, it's very poisonous stuff. I've seen it ruin a lot of people, and I would never want any of you to fall into that trap. Now, image is important, but not in the way you think. And by the end of today's show, you're going to have a different idea of why it's so important. So let me tell you a story. A few years ago, one day in cultural anthropology class, we were talking about this very topic: status, social identity, social image. And I mentioned a good friend and a cousin named Danny. Now, this happened way back in the day in San Francisco. There was a huge tribe of us gypsies, of which I was a part, And we were what you'd call a very collective group. We were the kind of group that we just we just couldn't imagine a world where we didn't all hang out together and we weren't together all the time. Nobody ever did anything alone back in those days. We really stuck together. And we had our own gypsy way of achieving status and our own gypsy way of creating for ourselves a positive social image. For example, imagine that you're the person that the others in the tribe want to have around whenever there's a party or a gathering. And like if your name is mentioned, people say, hey, let's go. So-and-so is going to be there. We'll have a great time. Well, that's the way for you to have status. Another way you could have a positive social image is you have to be known as someone who's generous, ready to help the others, ready to pick up a check at the restaurant, be hospitable. And there were people like this back in the day, but none like my cousin Danny. Now, Danny was a fun, loving, generous guy. He could make anybody laugh. And he was invited to all the parties because what else? He could make the whole party. Danny was there. Everybody had a great time. And, the way he looked really added to the funny man persona. He had the dark olive skin, and his long hair was forever falling down in his face. And even when he was all like dressed up with a suit and tie, he still looked sloppy. So that really gave him this funny man look. And once in a Mexican joint on Pico Boulevard in East LA, Danny won a burrito eating contest. And so we gave him the nickname Burrito. And I tell you, he wore the name proudly because it gave him status. And that's what nicknames do in collective cultures like gypsy culture. So one day, though, back in the day, Burrito did something that at the time I couldn't make sense of. So one day, the phone rings at our house, and it's Burrito. And he says, hey, you got $50? I need it. And I checked, and we have it. Okay, I'll be right there. So he sounded desperate to me on the phone. I mean, he sounded like he's in trouble. And now I'm starting to worry. And when he gets to my house, he looks like he's in trouble. And he comes straight in and he says, you got the money? And I give it to him. And then he says, what are you doing tonight? And I say, I don't know. I mean, why are you asking? Because tonight, I'm taking you out for a steak dinner. My treat. And as he's saying it, he's waving the two 20s and the $10 bill that I just handed to him. Now, I say, wait a minute. Why didn't you? And then he cuts me off. He says, no. Tonight's my treat. I'm taking you out. But don't forget, I owe you $50. Now, when I tell that story to my class, they ask, come on, did that really happen? Is his name really Burrito? And I said, who could make this up? But the best part is we got into a really good discussion of how status and social identity and social image really works, and the crazy things that we humans will do to get some status and to look like a winner. And that day, Burrito really wanted to look like a winner. And he was, because I know some people would say, well, gee, Larry, it sounds like he kind of took advantage. Well, yeah, I guess you could say I got played that day, but you really had to commend Burrito, and I did, for pulling such a clever and funny trick. And so we went out that night, his treat, and we left our heads off about this. And that story went all over California and even to other parts of the country among gypsies. And so you can well imagine Burrito's status and social identity and reputation skyrocketed. He was even funnier and more famous, if you want to say it that way, among gypsies than ever before. Now, why is this so important? Well, I'm glad you asked. So let's take Burrito. He wants to have a positive social identity. So he borrows the money from me with every intention to pay it back. And the word around town was that Burrito really played Larry and took him out for dinner. And it was Burrito's treat. Now, he would be able to go around then and say, yeah, I took Larry out for a steak dinner. I treated him. But here's the thing that I want you to keep in mind. There was something else about Burrito. He was always broke. Why? Well, he was always blowing his money on his friends. And looking back, I guess it must have bothered him that he often didn't have the money to do the things he wanted, especially when it came to doing nice things for his friends. And he was, trying to look like a winner, like we all do. But it must have bothered him that he couldn't afford to do a lot of things because he just didn't have the money. Now, maybe it bothers you too. Maybe you'd like to be able to do more things for your friends, or maybe you'd like to buy certain things or do certain things, and maybe you wonder if you're as popular as you could be. Now, as I've said before, we're mostly like 8th graders who have aged. And this can make people unhappy. And here's a really important point. When your identity gets wrapped up in how other people perceive you, now you're sliding over to the dark side. And to be honest, I think that was Burrito's problem. Because as the years rolled on, and I got into my 30s, and Burrito into his 40s, I moved to the Midwest to go to grad school, and as often happens, you lose touch with your friends. But once in a while I'd get phone calls, and I'd heard some things about Burrito, and the stories weren't funny. So it started to turn out that Burrito would go to parties and stuff, and as he got older, he was getting crazy with his drinking. He was falling down at people's houses and breaking stuff. And to be honest, his antics and his practical jokes just weren't appreciated anymore. And so far from being the guy you wanted at your party, his name became like a byword for the crazy guy that you avoid at all costs. I guess you could say people made sure he wasn't invited. Now, the sad part is that when that happened, he kind of lost who he was. Because making us laugh is what really made him happy. It was really all he knew. It was all he had. And it really defined him. But I think the worst part of all this is that he allowed other people and their perception of him to define who he was. And he couldn't find another definition for himself. He couldn't find another identity for himself. And when I look back on this, I see that even though I moved away, I should have made more of an effort to check up on Burrito. I mean, the poor guy needed friends, and he was in trouble. And I wasn't as helpful as I could have been. And I guess I was too busy, working on my own uh, positive social image. And I guess a lot of us were in those days. But, you know, that doesn't excuse me, and it doesn't make me feel any better, even after all these years. And we lost Burrito when he was way too young. He was only 45 when he died. Now, when you're young, as most of our listeners are, I get it. You care how other people see you, and you want to be seen as a winner, not a loser. But as I said, in Burrito's case, it has a dark side. It can destroy you. And see, there's another aspect to it. So let me ask you right now, wherever you are, whether you're watching or you're in your car listening or whatever, think about your goals for a minute. Maybe you're all by yourself, so it doesn't matter. You can just say it out loud, whatever it is. Your goal, your goals, the ones you think about, are important to you. And if you don't know what that is, just remember, you're listening because a part of you knows what it is. You're just almost a little bit too afraid to even say it out loud. So go ahead. Think about that crazy goal that you have. And now let me ask you this question. Are you doing things right now that are getting you toward that goal? Or are you spending a lot of time and energy and money just so you can look the part? If that's true, then I want you to understand the conflict that you have now put yourself in. You say you want to do X, but instead of doing the things that'll get you there, you're spending money, time, and energy on things that really are not going to serve that purpose. And I really want you to get how this can conflict people. It really ruins them, and they can't go forward. In fact, if you stay on that kind of a conflicted road, this will ensure that you'll never, ever get to where you want to go. So, what can we learn? Well, let me say this. Like I said, most of you are young, but, the thing that I want you to get is that when you're young, you care a lot about what other people are thinking. But when you get older like me, you're going to care a lot more about what that man or that woman thinks about you, the one in the mirror. When that image looks back at you, you want to be able to stand up straight. I mean, sometimes that man or woman in the mirror will look at you and have regrets, as I do, because I could have been a better friend to Burrito, that's for sure. I should have checked up on him. But here's the thing. When I think about that, it does make me feel sad. I admit it. But because I can warn you right now, that makes me happy. Perhaps I can help somebody else not to have to wait till they're old and have regrets. So now I really want to go over the 5 life lessons that we can pull out from today's story. But first, a little word from our sponsor. This is the Misfit Mentor with me, Larry Marino. This show is a part of a group called G2G. We're a nonprofit group doing humanitarian work in Eastern Europe with Roma Gypsies, and we also produce this show. So, if you'd like to be a part of our work, You can go to misfitmentor.com, hit the support us button, and you can make a tax-deductible gift right there. Thank you very much. So let's think about the things that you can do. Number one, go ahead and have your positive social identity, but be aware for whom you are doing it. I want to say it again. Be aware for whom you're doing this thing. Who's actually doing the defining? By the way, if it's not you, you've gone over to the dark side, and you got to get out of there. Like I said, when your identity gets wrapped up in how other people perceive you, you've gone over to the dark side. Please get out of there. Number two, please do this. Check up on your friends. You know, it's much easier nowadays to check up on people. You can call them, you can write them, you can text them, you can email them. You know, let them know that you're there for them. They could be in a terrible struggle and could use someone to help them wrestle it down. And you could be that person. So if you've been thinking about them, don't wait. Just reach out to them. Number three, remember, whether or not you have a positive social identity does not mean that you're not worthwhile. I mean, none of that is a part of this. You have to believe that. And people who get involved in the darkness of this, they sometimes don't believe that they're worth much. I never want anybody to fall into that trap. Most of the problems and terrible, self-inflicted behaviors happen because people don't think they're worth very much. You can't believe that stuff because it just happens to be a lie. Listen, number four, don't wait until you get old to check in with the man or the woman in the mirror. Don't wait. Do it now while you're young. Check in. See if the man in the mirror respects you. Does the woman in the mirror think that you're handling yourself well? This is important. And constantly ask, number five, am I really making progress toward my goals? Or do I just feel like I am? Or am I just looking the part? Well, I tell you, I really have enjoyed doing this first episode of Season 2. I hope you'll stay in touch with us. You can go to misfitmentor.com and check us out there. We have blogs there. Or you can write me at larry@misfitmentor.com. I never want anybody who listens to us to possibly think that they couldn't get a hold of us. If they really needed to talk, we're definitely available. And we're going to be doing some other things and shows coming up that's going to sort of facilitate you being able to talk to us more and put your questions right on the air. We record this program right here at WELT 95.7. Our producer is Adam Marino. This is the Misfit Mentor. I'm your host, Larry Marino. God bless you. We'll see you next time.